Hello and welcome. Thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Alicia Hodges and I am the Checkoff Program Director. We're excited to share with you all joining us today more about the Block Design Collective, which is one of our Checkoff programs. We're excited to have the Block Design Collective team joining us today. Just as an FYI, this webinar is being recorded, so we'll send out the recording after the webinar. If you guys joining us could all drop into the chat where you're joining us from, we would love to hear that, including the Block Design Collective team. If you guys could drop that in as well, that would be wonderful. And just as an FYI, we will have time at the end of our webinar for a Q&A session. So save your questions for the end. We'll open it up for Q&A then. So at this time, I am going to go ahead and turn it over to Tino, who is our Region 3 Technical Director. So Tino, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thanks, Alicia. So we'll do Q&A at the end. There is a Q&A option in Zoom. So if you want to stay anonymous or just type your question, you can and we'll answer it. But at the end, we'll open it up if anyone wants to ask their question out loud to the whole group. So welcome, everyone. Thanks for joining. We're going to spend the next 45 minutes-ish leaving time for questions about the BDC. So I just drafted up a brief agenda. So we'll talk about who is the Block Design Collective. What is it? What's our purpose, or what's our focuses? I wrote, why are we working? So I'm going to share some metrics with you guys, as well as last year, to see where our trajectory is going. What we've been up to in this Q1, I should say. I know we're in May, but just from a summary standpoint. And then lastly, we're going to end up with talking about how do we team up? And that's the BDC team, and then you as investors, to maximize the potential of what this could become. Like all the checkoff programs, there's a lot of opportunity to maximize, with this one probably being one of the biggest opportunities on the sales side, on the producer side, to be able to get as much masonry as possible on your projects. So that's what we'll talk about, is how do you engage with us to gain the most out of it? And then we'll end with Q&A. So one of the biggest and first things I just want to start with, and every director is going to be speaking today, except for Lauren. Lauren's unavailable. She's at a AEC event today and unable to make it. So I'll be speaking on her behalf. But everyone will be here. Everyone else will be here. They'll introduce themselves right before they start speaking, and talking about their regional highlights. But our whole team finally got together late October. So Q1 of 26 was the first full quarter that all five of us were here. And all of us do things a little bit differently, but all of our missions and our abilities are the same, which is project influence. So we have myself covering the Midwest. Chuck is in Region 1. Danielle is in Region 2, the Southeast. Lauren is in the Central. She lives in Dallas. And then Irene is in California, covering Region 5. And I just put this slide up here as a reminder. It's not just us five. Us five together do not make up concrete masonry experts. We use the industry's experts and consultants to ensure that on the AEC side, they get the best correct solution for their projects. And we engage consultants on our back end to ensure that we deliver that to them. So from an expertise standpoint, there's very little we say that we can't help with, because we'll help with whatever it takes to get masonry on your job. And I put this slide up. We shared this early on in BDC times early last year, and I brought this back up where we talk about it's a partnership between investor and BDC, but really who takes lead on that? And where our focus is that early, when projects start, concept design, SD level, DD level, almost kind of when materials can be changed without it being a big deal on the architect or the engineer side of things. Right before they get into the heavy engineering and design side is where we want to be, because that's the best opportunity for successful influence. Whether we convert a job or we solidify it as masonry, that's the best time for us to influence. So we like to think that during those periods of time, during projects, we take lead, but we need your help. We need your help understanding the market, the players, the designers. We need our introductions to be set forth for us so that we can take it and we can run with it. All we need here is an introduction to the architect or the engineer or your person of contact on that project that we want masonry on, and we'll take it from there. Absolutely. As we get later on the job, we often see that maybe the material has been specified and maybe there's block on there. In that case, on the producer side of things, you may be working on getting your material specified in the specifications. And we want to be there as a support system for that. So we will help. If you find that a project looks over-engineered, if it does not look right, if the engineer, the architect may not know what they're doing and they need some assistance, we will be there to support you. You do not need to have the answers. We will have the technical backing to be able to make sure their material or their masonry is designed as efficient as possible. So in that type, we like to think you guys be the lead because that's your client and your opportunity that you want to nurture, and we'll be there purely as a support system. If you want us engaged in that conversation, absolutely. If you want us to just help you with it so that you can translate that information, absolutely. We're just here as a support system. Now, while it's difficult to implement big changes during that later side, where it wasn't masonry and now we wanted to make it masonry, you can still have an influence on it, making sure it's a smooth transition, leaving a positive impact for that AEC. And that's that second half of this slide. So what we're finding, and the whole purpose of design assistance, is that project influence brings more food to the table. So if we have you think you have your current amount of projects, what project influence does, it fills those opportunities up. Those projects that may not have gone masonry, maybe those 50-50 balls, maybe we can get those into masonry, allowing for more opportunity. If you feel like we have 5% of the projects in your market are going masonry, maybe with project influence providing an additional service, it raises the likelihood of more projects being now available or a great fit for masonry. And that's what we want to do. And we're going to help with every single project, multifamily, warehouse, K through 12, retail. It's all of that. No matter what it is, project influence will help and bring more opportunity. And our goal is to increase that incremental demand of block in your regions using engineering, design assistance, preliminary design, cost estimating, energy assistance, anything that it can take, whatever that hurdle is to get over it, our job is to break that barrier. And so that's kind of our whole goal. And that's what our team over the last 6 months has been focusing in on. And so I just want to kind of share. So we went through 2025. We did this program webinar, and here's some data or metrics that we achieved in 2025. We had about 50% of our staff hired in terms of hours brought on board, but we focused on how many AECs are we directly interacting with. We threw out a number of 600. We got to around 1,200. That 1,200 people led to about 32 projects being influenced. So there's a ratio there. And that's just direct interactions. We also had contact hours, but all resulting in about 180,000 blocks that we added was not masonry, became masonry. And then we assisted on about 240,000 blocks. So combining that. Then from projects that came in, about 153. So we helped with those projects, but we weren't influencing. We were just a support system, which we are happy to do. But one thing we learned from this 2025 is that our return on investment, how we are most effective with the dollars we're given by the checkoff, is we want to influence block. And you do these in two ways. We add block. So of course, it wasn't block before. We added opportunity where it wasn't block into block. But we also assist on block. And I want to emphasize that we are tracking this as an important metric because of two things. It ensures that block stays on the job and the likelihood that it's returned use, making sure that there's no negative impact or thought about that block on that project that makes them not want to use it on the next one. And then although it's not added, assisting ensures that positive experience from that AEC, which will draw them back. So they see our capabilities, what we can do, what block can do, and they'll come back easier. And it'll be easier and easier to get them to come back to us and tell us about their project. So knowing that that's kind of where our end goal or our sites, that's how we score. We set some goals up. So we set up all 50 states. We have strategic meetings with architects, engineers, contractors. We have some education. We're going to be at conferences. We're developing presentations on the Learning Hub as a means to build credibility, to get them to come to us and trust us. We're going to develop resources for that same reason. And knowing that we did 30 last year with about half of our staff, let's aim to influence 100 this year. And the number of inquiries that come in, we're not sure. That's kind of based on demand that will nurture, but we can control a bit more how many of those projects we influence. And then we got 180,000 last year into the job. Let's influence 400,000 going into 2026. So going into 2026, this is just Q1 numbers. So this does not include April and May, which we did really well in. But we had a goal of 1,500 interactions from our goal last year. We're about 500 in just in Q1 directly. Projects received. What you'll see is we're at 78. We were at 153 last year. So we are going to raise that number up. But we're already at the number of projects that we've influenced in one quarter that we did all last year. And so that demand is raising. Where the blocks that we assisted on, we are about at 1.5 million, where we were at 240,000 before. And for blocks added, we've already exceeded all that we've done last year, where our goal was 400,000 blocks added. We're at 256,000 through one quarter. So the growth is there. From an education perspective, we set some really goals on number of education events. So if you wanted education, there is an opportunity for it. And we're tracking really well for that as well. But there's more that we're doing that's not impacted in these numbers that you see yet. We are attending national speaking engagements and exhibiting at Greenbuild, NCA, as well as AIA and SEA conferences. We're developing our delegated design volume and continuing to push that out, where we have 3 projects in 2026 that are slated for delegated design from BDC efforts. We're developing a prefabrication volume, a design guide to give another opportunity for masonry to be utilized to just open up that market and opportunities. And then we're focusing on K through 12, developing a resource, a presentation, as well as a very robust case study coming out of Region 4 that Lauren is helping with. And what this all boils down to is let's quantify this ROI. So this year on our docket is to engage with a third party to develop an ROI calculator for what we do with the program dollars and how it correlates to the blocks that we're adding back into the market. And we'll set a target. We'll see where we end up this year as our first full year, and we'll set targets. And our goal is every year we become more and more efficient and kind of raise that ROI number up. And it directly translates to how much block we're influencing. And so when we look at 25 to 26, we're going to grow. We're going to get better. And so this is just a little forecasting chart that I made just to kind of illustrate where green is what we did in 2025 and the darker shade teal, blue, whatever that color is forecast what we're going to accomplish in 2026. So you'll see that growth, and our goal is every year we're going to track and we're going to become more and more influential. And we're just getting started. Like we've just hit the surface level on architects and engineers that know about us. The more that we know, the more that we can be influential, the more that they'll come to us and trust us. So right now it's all about just learning what the most efficient process is. And lessons are really important for us at the BDC. We're always looking to improve. And I told our whole team this. Success this year is all about learning. If you learn what works or what doesn't work, you're learning, and that's a success. So right now, one of the things that we're focusing on is we need multiple leads. So although we go through producer sales teams trainings, you can submit an inquiry through our website and that was received via marketing. We're doing virtual webinars. We're creating resources. We're attending conferences. We're meeting one-on-one with AECs. And it just gives all these lead avenues for projects to come in. So we're kind of dabbling and seeing what's the most effective. And then we track a lot because data is important. So we're tracking project blocks that we assist on, blocks that we add, whether it's veneer, structural, load bearing, partition walls. where the project is because we want to make sure the blocks that we add into project drawings are actually getting built. So next year, we'll audit back the jobs that we assisted on in 2026 and make sure they got built so we can track that for our ROI. And then how we're assisting, what level we're assisting, project drawings, and that AEC point of contact so we can follow up with them as well. So we're tracking a lot to really establish our impact and follow up and making sure that our ROI is real and these projects are getting built. So that's a little bit about the BDC, our metric, and our growth. The next portion I want to kind of dive into is just really talk a little bit more in the nitty-gritty about our projects. So I'm going to just start just two quick highlights that I want to start with on what we can really accomplish. This is a project out in Nebraska, I believe. We got that little schematic drawing early on. Remember, in that earlier slide, concept schematic is where we want to live. So they just gave us this no material selection. They just figured out program massing, and we came in and said, hey, masonry would be a great option for this storm shelter edition. So the drawing that you see on the thing is ones that we created enough so that the mason contractor can price it, design it with confidence. It added about 80,000 units to the job. They were competing with precast, and they didn't know that masonry could be designed with storm shelters or as it. And so we provided this early consideration option and then said, general contractor, you pick. But we know here's all the reasons why masonry would be a good solution. So this started with a producer setting us up with a meeting with their pre-construction team, and this is the third project that we assisted. First of 2026, we assisted on two in 2025, but we got confirmation that they ended up going with masonry just because they had this option. If not, they were going to go with precast as a fixed alternative and just wait out the schedule for that. Another one in Region 3 is we got two speaking opportunities at the Structural Engineering Michigan Conference where we were able to speak on delegated design, and at SEA where we were able to talk about resilience. Both were really positive feedback. And for SEA Nebraska, it was the first time they had masonry in their conferences at structural engineers in years. So it was a big win. And then attending the Kentucky School Board Association conference in Kentucky was really important because a lot of GCs, engineers, and architects exhibiting there provided the opportunity to go in there and talk about masonry, why they're choosing it or why they're not choosing it, and learning more about that conference. So those are the two big project highlights or events out of the Region 3. So next, I'm going to turn it to Chuck, who is our Region 1 technical director, to talk a little bit about what he's been up to this first quarter. Chuck?
Thanks, Tino. So, hello, everyone. It's good to be with all of you. So I kind of divided this into, like Tino said, we all work a little differently. I pretty much put my work into one of three buckets. So it's either project work, events and or meetings, or education. So when I talk about project work, as Tino mentioned, it's either going to be blocks assisted or blocks added. For blocks assisted, you see I have, low-hanging fruit listed here. And what I mean by that is I think in certain cases, it could be a little easier to engage the stakeholders on a project if block has already been designed into the building or the drawings. And what we can do there is just say, well, send us what you have. We can do a drawing review. We can do a concept proposal for you and let you know what it would cost with what you have designed so far, if we can add block in certain cases. And I'm going to show you a few examples of three projects where we're helping with blocks assisted. Blocks added, I say that's a heavier lift because you need to figure out who the decision makers are. In some cases, is it going to be the designer? Maybe. If you can get to an owner, which is always more difficult because their time is more valuable, but they're definitely decision makers because they have the checkbooks, right? So in those cases, if we can get in front of the people that have the ability to literally say, like, I want the building built with block, that's where, we can suggest, let us do a concept proposal for you. And the earlier we can get to those folks, the better. And I always tell people it's as simple as, I ask a lot of really direct and simple questions, guys, like, is block being considered for the job? Or could this building be built with block? I know that sounds really simple, and that's because it is. And if you can get to the right person and ask that question, that opens up the door for us to put together a concept proposal. When I talk about events and meetings, pretty straightforward. I'm going to show you where I've been and where I'm going really just over the next month. And then for education, I'm going to show you what I've been working on in terms of building content and who I've educated so far this year. You can go to the next slide, Tino. Also, guys, before I get into project work, you'll see on the left of my slides, I have my cell phone number and my email address in case anyone from my region needs to reach me, or if you're outside of Region 1, but you're working on a project that's in Region 1, feel free to reach out to me. Okay, so for project work, there's three that I wanted to share with you because they're relatively new. And the first one is a delegated design opportunity. I know Tino said we have three of those so far this year. I don't know if he's counting this one in that number, but this is for a new school in the state of New York. Great story. And if you were on my RAC meeting this morning, you heard this already, but there was an engineer and he read Jamie Davis's article in Structure Magazine about delegated design and reached out to us right away. And he's very excited and he is committed to using delegated design on this building. So the most recent update I have on it is that last week he shared a list of prospective bidders with us. So I'm going to be reaching out to them, and Jamie is going to be working with this engineer to make sure that his documents are prepared correctly, to instruct people that there are certain portions of the building that will require delegated design. We don't have any takeoffs yet in terms of how much block it is, but those will be forthcoming, and obviously they'll be added into our KPIs. The next one is an auto dealership that reached out to us. We got this lead through one of the producers in Pennsylvania, and we're going to do a concept proposal for them. We're working with the Masonry Institute of St. Louis to prepare that proposal. And it's an interesting story. This design team does these buildings. They've done quite a few of them, and normally they are one-story buildings. This one needs to be two because there are some high density filing and some sort of lift mechanism that has to go on the second story. And so what we're talking to them about are, what are the axial loads, and their interest is, can we continue to keep this building as masonry? And so they've gotten us pretty much like a wish list of what they want to see in this proposal. We think it's going to be somewhere between 15 and 20,000 block. And so this is a defensive play for us, right? We want to make sure that we keep block on this building. So hopefully we're going to have that proposal turned around within the next 1 to 2 weeks and get it back to that design team. The last one, some of you may have heard me talk about, I know I brought it up down in New Orleans, but there's a prison in New York City that we are helping with in terms of, we did like a drawing review for them. Phil Adent helped me with this one, and Phil made some suggestions, and they were all centered around joint reinforcement and grout placement, and they are, I believe they are implementing the suggestions that Phil made. I reached out to this team as early as last week and said, hey, would you be willing to share what the cost savings are from the suggestions that we made that you guys implemented? And they're happy to do that. So eventually we're going to be able to share some numbers with you guys to show how we were able to bring the cost down on this job. That construction team actually reached out to us last week, and they had a simple question about, hey, which ASTMs and code sections can we look at for secure partitions in detention facilities? And so I share that with you guys because it just shows that their confidence in us is building. Now they're just reaching out and asking us, random questions. And Phil got right back to them before I had a chance to respond, and got them these ASTMs and a tech note from CMHA. And this is a big project. There's approximately 1 million CMU block on this. So that's a really exciting project for us in Region 1. Okay, Tino, you can go to the next one. Okay, so I'm not going to go through this. This is basically the events and meetings that I've been to in 26. I'm not going to go through this entire, all these bullets with you guys, but these date all the way back to February. The only thing that I would have had an opportunity to go to in January was World of Concrete, and we were represented there. So, we didn't have the entire team go, so I stayed back from that. But the NAHB show was in February in Orlando, and then this is just a list of where I've been. As you can see, I do move around the region, and in some cases outside of it. The last thing I exhibited at was a conference just last week in Ocean City, Maryland, and ASBO stands for Association of School Building Officials. So that was a regional event that Aaron Fisher, my RAC chair, told me about. And this is an organization that I am going to do a little more digging and find other chapters because it is a national organization, but they're set up regionally. So you have to find, the other chapters. But it was a good conference. There was a lot of school districts present and a lot of firms that we want to engage with in the way of architects and engineers and also builders. So this is just a snapshot of where I've been so far this year. Coming up, I had a RAC meeting this morning, which I had to leave early, but it was a great meeting. There was a lot of good updates. I have 3 lunch and learns scheduled and 2 other speaking engagements scheduled. So June is already extremely busy, guys. So if anyone wants to try and plug me in to speak anywhere, I would tell you it's going to have to be after the holiday in July. So that's what I have coming up. In terms of education, we're building a AIA accredited presentation that will be focused on K through 12 schools. The final draft of that will be ready at the end of this week, and it will be ready for our Block Learning Hub for August 1st. Just a quick note about that. I saw that Major is on the call here with us today. The company that is helping us build this presentation is called Design Clarity, and Major and I attended a grand opening for the AIA Global Campus in Washington, D.C. I think it was in December. And we wound up standing at a high top table at this event. There were no speakers. It was just an open house. And we wound up talking to Sean Mulligan, and he's the president of Design Clarity. And so I bring that up because I just want to stress the importance of going to things sometimes in the evening when you'd rather be home, maybe, watching television. So that's where we met Sean, and he's really doing a bang up job on this presentation. It's going to be a really effective tool for us for K through 12. And then, as far as who I've educated, I've given the broader sustainability of CMU deck twice now. Once on our Learning Hub, we had 81 attendees, and most recently for Architectural Record, and that was really well attended. We had 446 attendees. And then we have a small deck to introduce the Block Design Collective. And I have Tom Fasano's name down here because Tom and I have a system in place where we keep blocking off certain Thursdays, and then Tom goes out to his customers. And when he gets someone who is interested in learning more about us, Tom doesn't need to reach out to me and say, hey, when are you free? We already have the dates in place. And so that's a strategy that I would encourage anyone to try. Tom has got me into 5 firms now. The last one we went to was in Philadelphia. That was an in-person meeting. Most of the time, he just sets them up virtually for me. But the last one was in person, and Tom walked out of there with a lead for a really nice project in Philadelphia. So that type of system works, guys. And if anyone else wants to try that with me, please just reach out to me. And it looks like I'm turning it over to Danielle. But thank you all. It's good to be with everyone today.
Hey everyone, my name is Danielle Mokris. I'm taking it over now for Region 2. I'm your Southeast Director based in Tampa, Florida, and I was the final director to join our team. So now we have a complete team. Like Tino said, Q1's our first time that we're all being able to work together and kind of show what we're doing. So it's been a busy year so far in 2026. I have 8 states in Region 2, and I have been able to spend some significant time in half of them so far, with plans to visit the other 4 in the next few months. And so with that, it's been kind of a combination of education, promotion events across the region with our industry and also our associations. And so I've got a list of the major events that I've attended in the last few months. Similar to Chuck and similar to our other directors, a combination of national events like World of Concrete and the American Concrete Institute, and then a lot of regional events working with CSI, our Concrete Masonry Contractors Association, and working just across the region. And then moving forward, I have quite a few lunch and learns, both virtual and in person planned for this year. And then here's a list of my major events that I have going into the end of the year, a lot more industry and designer focused events where I'll get to meet a lot more folks. So really looking forward to that. So far, a lot of our events, throughout the year have gone really well. And many of these have been in combination with our Educating Design Professionals program that we have here in Region 2. And that's where Bayard Stevens and Chris Bettinger are really helping lead the way for coordinating speaking events for me and having our masonry experts come and speak throughout the region this year. So a lot of our success with knowing which events to go to and knowing and getting a speaking opportunity has been with the help of our Educating Design Professionals program. So very thankful to have that here in Region 2. So far, I have attended about 40 events or meetings throughout the year with over 400 continuing education hours here. So really working hard with our, Educating Design Pros group and the rest of the region to attend all these events. As far as projects go, I've had about 18 projects in the region so far, and really working. And I think we're finally seeing the fruit in Region 2 of all these events that I've been working on and getting a lot more context, especially this month in May. I've seen a lot more project support requests. And so I think we'll see a lot more impact in the coming months about the projects we've been working on, especially here in Region 2. And so in addition to these education events for our AECs, I have also hosted 8 training sessions for producers across the region to walk through our current BDC tools and resources and how I can help our sales teams. And these have been really helpful to meet people and also understand our challenges with our sales folks and kind of where do you need help? How can BDC help you early on in the projects like Tina was showing? Like, how can we be in that concept stage? Who are the key players? And so later on in this presentation, after our region updates, I'll walk through some of our BDC tools and how we can collaborate better with your teams. But I've seen a lot of success with that in Region 2 so far. And then I also want to share just a couple good news stories from Region 2 where some of our program funds and a lot of our time has gone. So first up, very exciting for our region and the masonry industry as a whole, we sponsored the construction of a St. Jude Dream Home. And that's our first ever St. Jude Dream Home that is a full masonry framed home. And so they construct homes all over the country every year and they're giveaway homes. And this is the first one being fully masonry framed. And so being able to coordinate that with the Beauty of Block and the Block Design Collective has been really great with donation of materials from Dominion Block and support from the Southeast Concrete Masonry Association as well. And so with that, it's been an amazing opportunity for marketing and for building content. So we're also in the planning process of joining some more St. Jude events to show how having a masonry framed home can maybe be a great or a better option, and just showing how this worked with our builder in Virginia and how this could be a really good opportunity for other St. Jude homes across the country. So more to come on that, but we've been really trying to promote this awesome project and we have a lot more coming for the rest of the year on this. A couple other ones, another exciting win in our region is that the Masonry in a Box curriculum that was developed by Dr. Dick Bennett from the University of Tennessee is now available on our Beauty of Block website for more readily available access. And so this is a great set of curriculum that we're promoting across the country to really engage more professors and universities and encourage them to include this course in their curriculum. And so the most recent win that we have on this is in Region 2 is that the University of Florida will now be teaching this course for the Civil Engineering Department in spring of 2027. So that's very exciting. And then another big win for us is currently under technical review this week is the Masonry Framed Homes Guideline. And once complete, this guidance will promote concrete masonry unit growth in residential markets and also provide homeowners and builders with quality information to assist them in choosing the premier wall system for their residents. So we are currently going through a tech review on that guidance now. And once that's out, that'll be a really helpful resource for all residential construction for masonry. And then one other program I wanted to hit on is in Region 2, we also have our help desk, which is in partnership with Florida Masonry. And that really helps drive inquiries to our website and grow our brand of Beauty of Block, the Block Design Collective even more. So we're really growing within our region, and we're getting more architects and engineers to understand how we can help with a program that we're doing now, and just trying to push them to the website and saying, if you have projects, we can help you. Let's get you there, and showing that BDC can be a resource to provide design assistance for masonry. So a lot going on in our region too, but that's it for me.
Thanks, Danielle. She's doing an awesome job. The producer sales teams meeting is one that I cannot emphasize more. Get us engaged. We can kind of walk through everything that we can offer so that you can offer those same services. It's really important. So I'm going to go do my best to do Lauren's slides, but it will not do it justice. Lauren is doing a really good job in South Central. So a lot of this is a lot of her metrics, but she's doing a really good job with meaningful design influence. About 7 projects to date that she's gotten that either resulted in more block or more efficient use of block on the jobs. She's been present at the Oklahoma Structural Engineering Conference, participating in our Block Learning Hub webinar, and then another structural engineering event next week in Arizona. Lauren's done a really big focus on GCs, specifically pre-construction teams, and focusing in on allowing them to be when on projects where they're the decision maker, where they can nix a project or influence a project to go precast or tilt up or masonry, really focusing in on and being an asset to them. So Lauren's really focused with GCs to try to schedule as much meetings as she can with them. She's in Arkansas right now, I believe, for that very same reason. She's speaking at the National Storm Shelter Association in Oklahoma, speaking at Blockwork on thermal mass, and then creating a presentation right now, emphasizing the speed and construction of masonry and honing in on a message that schedule is not one of our concerns. And then lastly, she's gone through this big effort to coordinate Region 4 to put together a K through 12 case study, produced on the architect side with case studies on masonry schools to utilize that. And that's one thing that, although she's doing that at a Region 4, all of us across the other regions are going to leverage that for our markets. This is a couple examples for projects. One is a masonry concept proposal that she put together. It was a full project proposal request. It's a fuel station and convenience store in Oklahoma City. Around 8,200 square foot building, and they didn't know what material to build with, so we're pushing masonry for that one. Or on the one on the right is kind of the elevations and the markups to show the reinforcement, the spacing, the sizing to allow for a really good mason estimate. And then here's kind of a project on that design assist side where it actually was masonry, but very poorly done. So she leveraged Phil's assistance and found nearly almost 20% design efficiency gaining and design cost savings. And this is with at an elementary school with a structural engineer that never really designed with masonry. They were designing it as precast. And if any engineers in the room know that's not what you do. So this was able to instantly provide on a project that was masonry to prevent a lot of later headache and cost premiums by just getting in there and allowing us to design. So Lauren's been really busy with a lot of stuff, and apologies she couldn't be here today as she's in Arkansas kind of doing what we do. So I'm going to turn it over to Irene to talk about both Region 5 and also the Learning Hub.
Hi, everyone. My name's Irene. If you haven't met me, I am the Region 5 Technical Director based out of the San Francisco area. So with the Kick of 2026, I've cast a pretty wide net between AEC Lunch and Learns, regional conferences and trade shows, working with industry partners throughout with collaboration, case study developments, and in particular, looking at seismic resources to develop for Region 5 and project assistance. You'll see here that so far this year, these are some of the major events I've been at with kind of a mix of attending different trade shows and conferences, as well as speaking and exhibiting opportunities in Q1. Looking at kind of upcoming travel, we do have some other major trade shows and events coming up soon. Some notable ones coming up is working with the AIA Central California Coast for a local lunch and learn, as well as putting together an IMI and BDC masonry workshop. And then later this year, I'll be attending the Green Build and NCSEA conferences, which are both large national conferences to target AEC firms. Some of the things I'm working on in Region 5 is looking at developing resources for the high seismic regions. One of the common misperceptions that we are battling out here in the West Coast is that masonry doesn't perform well in seismic regions. So I'm working with a local California engineer to develop a presentation on masonry best practices in high seismic areas. This was submitted as an abstract for a speaking slot at the NCSEA conference in October, which is the National Convention of Structural Engineers in the US. And so we just recently received the great news that we will be speaking in October 2026 to the audience. We will also be featuring this presentation on the Block Learning Hub in November later this year. And so in this presentation, we'll look at real-world challenges faced by structural engineers and gain insights into best practices and considerations for concrete masonry analysis and detailing, followed with a project case study on how masonry was used advantageously to deliver successful performance in a seismic environment to really help counteract the misperceptions that we are dealing with out here. Another great thing I'm working on right now in Region 5 in terms of industry collaboration is putting together a structural masonry workshop with the International Masonry Institute, IMI. We'll have a full day event that will be a mixture of educational seminars in the morning and a hands-on workshop targeting architects and engineers. The goal here is to continue to drive engagement and education in CMU design, showcase innovation and sustainability, and industry collaboration. Some of the case studies I'm working on out here right now is the Altadena home case study. So after the January 2025 fires, the first home to receive a permit and the first home to receive the certificate of occupancy after the Altadena fires was a CMU home. It is made out of fully grouted 8-inch CMU, both the main house and the ADU in the backyard. So with this case study, we've been working with the architect and the homeowner to put together a case study that can do a cost comparison to a wood structure, at least to get baseline numbers, and an energy modeling comparison. So this is to curate some content for us, but also a presentation to promote CMU in wildfire zones. Another great case study that I've been able to land on is a fire station built within 5 miles of an active fault in Colorado. There's a lot of considerations in the design of this fire station, including durability, safety, sustainability, strength. So we're working with the GC and the mason contractor to curate a narrative on the benefits of CMU. And this is a point I do want to hone in on, where I am focusing some of my time. A lot of our general presentations do a really great job talking about the great benefits that CMU brings to projects, but case studies give us another level of being able to present a proof of concept and being able to showcase exactly what kind of benefits we're bringing onto projects, which is why there is a bit of an emphasis in Region 5 looking at case studies. And then looking into kind of project assistance, one really big one that we got out of Region 5 were some multifamily residential developments. We were able to get into this project directly through the developer GC on the project. So this consisted of 4 multifamily buildings that he was building for himself as kind of investment properties for him and his family in the future. It's about 30,000 square foot per building, about 6 to 7 floors throughout the building. Initially, when the project first came to us, the intention was to only use block on the 2 long perimeter walls on the building. After being able to run through some schematic design with the developer, we were able to find additional opportunities to add additional block onto the project, which included a lot of the back of house areas on the ground floor, which you're looking at right now, including 2 shear walls up the full height of the building, which was a really big win for us. So that was about 3,000 blocks added per building, or and about over 13,000 blocks influenced per building. On the national scale, there's kind of two national accounts that the BDC has been working on throughout the year. One is with the national Target retail stores. What we have seen as of late and some of the feedback that we've gotten from Target is that they have begun, in recent years, they were moving away from CMU, but they wanted to reinvigorate a discussion about bringing CMU back to their national stores. And so we were able to find a project out of Tennessee where they had built out a precast, and we were able to rerun the design out of CMU. We took that design and sat down with the national retailer to discuss kind of the benefits of CMU, and we're able to provide some pricing to give them a pinpoint. Right now, we are in the process of setting up meetings with their construction managers who own a lot of the design choices on wall selections. So we're continuing this effort with Target in order to increase kind of the market share that CMU can bring to the national retailer. And then another account that we're working on is kind of with Amazon, the Amazon warehouse team. Earlier on this year, we were able to look at kind of a typical warehouse that they built throughout the US and looking at different opportunities where CMU can be brought in to solve some of their concerns with costs and price. And so where we landed with that is Amazon is really excited right now about looking at prefabricated CMU as a solution for their warehouses throughout the US. And this is something that we will continue to work on a desktop study on with them throughout this year. And as that's kind of the overall review of Region 5, going into the Block Learning Hub, that is the Block Learning Hub, as you all know, is a free on-demand educational platform established to provide additional resources to the AEC community. In 2026, we transitioned the Block Learning Hub into the scope of the BDC. And so if we go into the next slide, we'll review some of the strategic goals. We have 4 major strategic goals for the Block Learning Hub. The first is knowledge development. We want to make sure that we're providing free and accessible learning experience and lowering the barrier to educational resource for CMU design for design professionals. So in terms of making sure that CMU is being considered in the design of projects, we want to make sure that designers know how to work with it and design with it, and it's part of their standard toolkit of materials that they can design with. And then the other strategic goal is skill development. So we want to make sure that these AECs are equipped to design, detail, and better understand how CMU can be used advantageously on their projects. The 2 other goals we have on the Block Learning Hub is to showcase innovation. Similar to kind of what I was talking about with the case studies, Masonry has a story to tell, and it allows us, the Block Learning Hub through our webinars, allows us to showcase all the new innovations within the masonry industry and kind of reinvigorate enthusiasm about using CMU on projects. And then lastly, industry engagement. It's important for us through the Block Learning Hub to engage with the industry on a local level and spread the education of the masonry down through AECs. And so when we look at the roadmap of the Block Learning Hub, we launched this in April 2025 with a total of 12 presentations uploaded on the platform. In 2026, we are going to continue building presentations to establish a resource of technical basics with a handful of special topics. So far this year, we've put on about 5 webinars thus far, with our biggest webinar drawing in over 300 attendees. And then looking into next year, we're shifting over to highlighting industry innovation to grow on the basics presentations, but also began to shift to a larger focus on industry innovation, including kind of Checkoff funded programs and case studies. And then moving onward past 2027, we'll have a larger focus on innovation and case studies that hopefully will inspire the AEC community and get them to participate in presenting their projects and what they've done. So our upcoming schedule that we have, the next one we have scheduled is June 3rd, which is about controlling movement and cracking in CMU structures and veneers. We'll follow that up on June 24th with the stair core design guide. And then as Chuck had mentioned earlier, there is a presentation focused on K through 12 schools. There's a great number of presentations we have featured later this year, so hopefully you can all join us. And then in terms of KPIs that we're tracking through the Block Learning Hub, we are tracking the number of accounts and registered with the Block Learning Hub each year. As Tino mentioned kind of earlier in this webinar, data is our friend here, and having these data analytics track us will really help guide where we want to move forward with the Block Learning Hub. Right now, we are aiming to create 10 new courses for the Block Learning Hub, and then aim for a total hours learned of 3,000, which we're on track to do for 2026. And then the total number of educations given live through the directors, through lunch and learns and speaking opportunities at regional conferences.
Okay, so we have a couple minutes left. So how do you plug in? We have a couple slides here just to kind of show this is what all the regional directors have been doing. This is what the BDC is about. What does that mean for you? Real quick, next slide. Okay, thanks. So with that, we really want to grow the Block Design Collective as your primary resource for any project-related design assistance that you might need in the long term. So we really need your help here to grow the Block Design Collective and help us become a nationally recognized industry resource. And so we've got just a couple slides here just to kind of show what that can look like. So with that, we really need your help. You guys are the boots on the ground. You guys are, your local experts, your local firms. So we really need your help setting up and building relationships with these target AECO firms. So whether that means that it's a company that you're already working with and you can connect and say, hey, have you worked with the Block Design Collective before? They can answer these questions about masonry. Or if you're working with a design that doesn't include masonry, they can bring it to the table and show you a design. It could also be strategically targeting these firms that you're not currently working with, but you'd like us to. So really just giving us the names and helping us, introduce ourselves to those, whether we're going in and doing a lunch and learn, or we're just providing an update about the Block Design Collective, or cold calling, whatever it may be. And then the third option is if an AECO reaches out to you for a project that they need help with, that you then pull us into the equation. And so some natural times that you can introduce the Block Design Collective is, again, like Tina was trying to hit on, really early in the design or concept stage. If you're able to, that's where we can really thrive and really do our best work. But also if masonry is being discussed and compared to other wall systems, or when you're talking about cost, fire resistance, energy, performance, constructability, any of these topics, even if you're kind of early on in the process, we can help you there. We have our skill set, our team that we're working with to be able to help incorporate masonry into the project. And so you don't have to know all the answers, of course. Bring us in, help us review the plans, help us work with this architect, engineer, designer, whoever it may be, and help us determine, the best way that we can assist their team. You'll stay connected and informed throughout. Your sales teams will stay connected and informed, but just help us help you. We want to be an extension of your team. And as you have design challenges or where masonry is not on the table and we want to bring it there, that's what we're here for. So you don't have to know exactly what our involvement looks like, but we can help you. So long term, again, we want our design community to see us as a trusted resource for design assistance. And we want to bring masonry to the table to help it get evaluated earlier and more often. So this helps, more informed projects, higher performance, bringing more masonry, more food for everyone at the end of the day.
Thanks, Danielle. And I guess the reason why I put those slides and why Danielle's speaking on that, why it's so important, is the success and utilization of investors of the Block Design Collective will truly tell, are we growing this way or are we ramping up like that way? And we're ready to go. So the more you can use us, the more you can leverage us, the better opportunities and successes that we're going to see across the nation. So I'm just going to end it off on our team slide. I just want to set aside at least 5 minutes for questions to be able to answer it. So if you want to ask the question out loud, you can, We have a chat. There's also a Q&A button option that you can click on. I'm looking at all of them. And so I don't see any questions in, but all of our team information is on here. All of our emails at one point was that first part, so C Rotundo at concretemasonrycheckoff.org. We've now kind of switched to blockdesign.org. Both emails are active. You can send it to either, but blockdesign.org is what we're our forward-facing email to architects, just to separate ourselves as this block design collective program rather than as the checkoff. For us internally, it's all the same, but we do have two emails. So there was one question on that. So just wanted to clarify that. But all of our phone numbers, our emails there, all you got to do is send an email. We'll make it easy. So please reach out. If there's any questions that come up later on any of the slides, or if anything comes up later, always please feel free to reach out and we can talk about anything BDC related, project or non-project related. I got one question. What is the most effective way to be considered as an alternate to precast and I think that question, the most effective way to be considered as an alternate to precast. I think we are already an effective way to be considered. But the thing with precast is they get engaged very early. They're engaged really very early on the project, and it is precast. Architects and engineers delegate that scope and allow the precast to do the engineering and execution of their said material scope. That's a big reason why we're pushing delegated design to allow for masonry to get committed early on in the project, delegate it, and allow the specialty engineers to design it to ensure a smooth process for that engineer of record or architect of record. So we are pushing delegated design as a means or a thing to encourage that. But anytime a job's precast, there's no reason why it can't also be masonry. So I think that's a really good opportunity to reach out to plug in, and we can kind of work with the local mason contractor availability, the producers, the local market, and put together a number so that they can compare it. Especially right now in the boom of data centers, a lot of precasters have long lead times, which is a great opportunity for us to swoop back in there and gain a lot of scope and then keep that for years to come. I hope that answered your question, Karen. If we all start at zero, masonry can finish way ahead. Yes, you are right, Jerry. Absolutely agree. When does the clock start is what I say. All right. No more questions. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, Tino. I can go ahead and wrap it up, but thank you to Tino and the Block Design Collective team. We appreciate you all joining us today. Have a great one.